Hello, and welcome to the latest Content Club Pep Talk. These pep talks are only achievable, is that the right way, by some great sponsorship from Content Design London. They have a new edition of Content Design book coming out. I should write them lines because that's awful. Sorry, Sarah. Sorry, Rachel, if you ever see this. Right, today we have Alysia, who's going to talk about why we should stop talking about content design. So over to you, Alysia, if you're ready to go.
Thank you. I will just share my screen. Cool. Can everyone see my slides?
Yes.
Okay, great. So hi everyone, I'm Alysia and I'm content design lead at the Royal Borough of Greenwich. I'm going to talk a bit about my approach to stakeholder management today and why I've stopped talking about content design to non-content design people. So I'm probably going to talk for about 20 to 25 minutes, and then I want to open it up to have more of a conversation about your own approaches and see what we can learn from each other. I'm particularly interested in if this approach works for you or specifically doesn't work for you or for your organization. But before we get into it, I'll just quickly tell you a little bit about how I got into content design. So I think I've had quite an unusual content design career path because I've actually only ever done content design. So I did an English degree at university. And after the usual comments of you'll never get a job with that degree, or are you going to be a teacher, I started applying for any and every job that was even remotely related to my degree. And one of the many jobs I applied for happened to be for a content designer role at Medway Council. And somehow, despite having absolutely no content design experience, I got the job. I think that might have had a bit more to do with having the right attitude than direct experience. But I do believe that being very open to learning from others goes a long way. So just a reminder that if you don't have content design background, don't let it put you off from applying for content design roles, especially if you've been doing something very similar but without the title. I generally believe that although content design is a hard thing to do, as long as you care about making things simple and accessible, you'll probably make a great content designer. So I've been in content design now for about 7 years, and 6 of those have been in local government. So I did 1 year during COVID at a tech startup, where I was the first person in the team with content design experience. And in that role, I talked about content design a lot. Mostly because I was in a marketing team and then they had an adjacent product team. And it was just really hard to collaborate with other product disciplines. So during my time, I did a lot of presentations and I invited myself to a lot of meetings. And I do think we got to a bit of a better place, but it was a real struggle not having people in my direct team who really understood what you need to have in place to do proper content design. So after that role, I really wanted to stop having to advocate for content design and just start doing proper content design again. I also decided that my happy place was in local government, getting to work on content for all sorts of things, from Christmas bin times to getting a marriage license to finding out if you can cut down a tree in your garden. I find all that stuff super interesting, even though it's super mundane sometimes. So I started looking around for a new job, and I ended up at Greenwich, and I've been there for about 3 years now. And having done content design in local government for most of my career, I've tried and tested pretty much every approach to stakeholder management that I can think of, and with varying degrees of success. But having got to my current approach, which is what I've named this talk after, stop talking about content design, that is where I am now. So I do want to start by saying that this is an approach that works for me and my context at a local council. I'm also in a very lucky position at Greenwich in that content design is very well advocated for, and that's by senior leaders in the digital team. And they do actually know what we do and the value that we bring. And they also make it much easier because they promote this when talking to other senior leaders in other departments. And that really helps to remove some of those initial barriers that I know a lot of us face. But like most organizations, we still work with lots of people who don't know what we do and the value that we bring. I'd also say, like every approach, making lots of caveats here, it's important to read the room and adapt if it isn't working for you, your subject experts, or your organization. But hopefully some of what I'm going to talk about rings true for you and you're able to try out some of these things for yourself. So stop talking about content design. I know some of you will be thinking that this sounds counterintuitive and that you have to talk about content design and help people understand what you do to get buy-in and approval to do it. I get that, and I think it's very true within your own teams. I think it's much harder if you don't have that initial support from a manager, a head of service, or other content designers or disciplines that you work with. But if you do have that support, then those are the only people that you really need to talk about content design to. They can help make sure you're in the right meetings and that you have support when you're frustrated about a lack of content design awareness from other teams. But the rest of the subject experts you work with probably don't need to know. I'm not saying we shouldn't be trying to raise awareness of the value of high quality content and design, but I am saying that we shouldn't do it by talking about content design. I'd say one of the biggest challenges or most common challenges I've heard from other content designers is getting burnt out from constantly having to advocate for content design and telling people why you should be invited from the start. But what if we didn't have to explain the value of content design? What if we stopped talking about content design altogether? Have you ever asked a friend to describe what you do for work? If you're familiar with Friends, you'll probably remember the scene where they're trying to remember what Chandler does for a living. He's basically a data guy, but to them it's just something to do with numbers. I guess the content design equivalent would be it has something to do with the words on the website. It doesn't really matter if our friends and family can explain what we do, although it can be nice sometimes when they do have an idea. But it does matter when our colleagues don't know what skills we bring and what we can help them achieve. Because if they don't know, they won't give us their time. And if they don't give us their time, then we risk our content being inaccurate or facing a blocker when we're ready to publish. We're content designers. We love talking about content design. That's why we go to so many talks and meetups outside of our working hours. We love nerding out about words and design, but we can't expect other people to want to do the same, especially when they have their own jobs and their own lives to juggle. We've all had times where we felt frustrated explaining why things need to be accessible or why content needs to meet a valid user need. But we need to remember and treat our stakeholders as users with valid user needs too. Now, that doesn't mean we shouldn't push best practice or not design accessible content, but it does mean that we need to listen and hear them out and understand what matters to them and what they need. Now, I've tried and failed plenty of times, and although I don't think there's one right way to do content design, I've learned that there's plenty of wrong ways to do it. And in the interest of transparency and accountability, here are some of the things that I've done wrong in the past. 1, doing presentations about content design to non-content design people or product people. Those presentations are hard enough to do with people who have user-centered design knowledge, but doing it to a crowd of people who have no interest in learning about how to do content design is often a waste of your time and their time. Have you ever watched a golf YouTube video? My partner watches them all the time, and nothing will make me stop listening to someone faster than hearing them talk in detail about how to do something and then hearing them congratulate themselves about how well they did it. Self-congratulatory presentations about how great you are and why your job is really important only makes people feel that you're saying that their role isn't. Now, I'm sure you're not framing your presentations like that, but there's something about hearing someone talk about the value they bring that can really make you want to stop listening. Maybe that says a little bit more about me than everyone else, but that's an issue for another day. What I am saying is that unless you make it relevant to the people you're presenting to, they're probably not going to take much from it. I've done plenty of these presentations in the past, and some have had positive responses, but they just didn't change anything. 2, reeling off the content standards and what we do and don't publish. Sometimes the easiest thing to do if someone asks for something that you know isn't best practice is to say, no, it breaks our rules to do that. You're not really helping them understand why and what the alternative is. You're just making them feel disempowered. You may even panic and frustrate them if they think that you could now be the person standing in their way of getting the task that they have on their to-do list ticked off. 3, just doing the work and hoping no one notices. Sometimes having tricky conversations is hard. It can be really tempting to just do the thing and hope no one notices, but this is a pretty risky game to play. If they do notice, you've broken trust and damaged an existing relationship or put another barrier in the way of building a working relationship with them. They may even tell others and no one will want to work with the team. And if they don't notice, They won't know what you've changed or why. So really all you're doing is pushing the problem further down the line or pushing it on to the next content designer who works with them. 4, saying no. Saying no is a necessary evil, but saying no without context doesn't help to manage expectations. You need to better explain why you can't do what they're asking, better understand what they need, and find a better way to help them achieve it. Or say not yet and help explain how you'll work with them in the future. 5, saying yes. Nothing says I've had a hard week than just saying yes to everything, even though you know you should push back. The conversations are hard, but sometimes you just need to have them. That being said, you do need to compromise, and sometimes you need to give in for your own well-being or ask a colleague for support. In our team, our content designers are able to lean on each other to have these conversations if one of them isn't in the right headspace to have it themselves. And in those cases, it's often a yes for now, but that we'll review it again in a few weeks' time when we have more time to improve the content as needed. Or a yes for now when explaining what the problem is and how you plan to address it in the future. So I've just talked for ages about what not to do. So here are a few things that I have tried that I think do work well when trying to help people understand content design without talking about it. 1, treat subject experts like you would your users. We would always get to know our users through data or research to help inform how we write for them. So we should be doing the same with our stakeholders. Only when we understand their needs, their priorities, outcomes, and perspectives can we work out what they need and why. This will inform all of our future interactions with them and help us build a good working relationship. 2, avoid assumptions and approach conversations with an open mind. It's easy to work ourselves up and get nervous about and anxious before going into these conversations. Bursting in with a load of ammunition or research about why we're right and why they need to do what we say isn't going to help build that relationship. It also won't help us to understand why they want what they've asked for. It can be better to save all that evidence up for when we know a little bit more about them and the work that they want and are ready to make a proposal of how we can help meet that goal. Knowing what they need and why can help us find a more suitable solution. For example, if someone comes to us asking us to put their team structure on the website, we will be able to sit down with them and ask what they want to achieve and find an alternative that meets our standards. So they may say, I want to promote my team. And we'll panic and get ready to battle because we know team pages aren't useful to residents who don't know or need to know what teams our organisation is made up of or what they do. Now, instead of assuming that there's not a valid user need, it's worth pressing to see what they're trying to achieve. What do they need to know about the team? Instantly, it's less of a stalemate and it's more of a conversation. They may say something like, because people don't know what we do. And you might say, well, what do your team help residents do? And they may say they help them with the process of getting an education, health and care plan. And together you've realised at the same time what you actually need, a page that helps parents apply for care and support for a child. At no point did you have to talk about best practice or content design or make them feel like they have no say about the content about what they do. We didn't have to say we don't publish team pages, and we also didn't have to say we write user-focused content that meets a valid user need, which doesn't really mean anything to them. Instead, you've come to a shared understanding of what is needed. You've built a relationship, the subject expert feels listened to, and you're both happy that the content you'll be working on is needed. Of course, if it's not needed, the same sort of questions can help you identify that. You may ask who it's for and find out it's to help residents understand the process of the team. And you can then ask them which parts of the process they need to know about and what happens behind the scenes that only practitioners need to know. You're not saying no to the content, you're putting up what residents need, but you're also identifying opportunities for other content, such as an intranet page that helps new colleagues understand how to make a referral and who they need to talk to. 3, frame your proposal based on what matters to them. Once you have that relationship and know what they care about and what they want to achieve, you can make your conversations and proposals relevant to them. You can grab their interest and make them see instantly that you've heard them and can help meet their goals. So you may have talked to them and they might have mentioned that they need to save money or meet new statutory duties or save staff time or promote a service they run. When you talk to them, you can explain your proposal in terms of those things. For example, if they're trying to save money, talking about how good quality content is the cheapest way to help residents find what they need and make transactions with the council can help. It can also help people find alternative options and manage their expectations if a particular service is at capacity and there is a long waiting list. By basing it in what they're trying to achieve, you can help frame your proposal in a way that is valuable to them. It can help them understand why you're making that suggestion and increase the chances of them embracing it. You've asked them for their expertise about the service, and you've shared your expertise in accessible content design. 4, involve them in the work. Having someone come in and tell you how to write about your work or refuse to publish something you've asked for can be pretty disempowering, and it can feel quite patronizing. By involving them in the work, you can avoid them feeling that change is happening to them and instead help them see the part they're playing in improving experiences and interactions for residents. We can't do the work without them, and it's important to acknowledge that. We've recently been working with a subject expert, and we ran a workshop to understand what they do and what it helps residents to achieve. We didn't talk about content design, even though principles of good services, user stories, and user-focused design were the reasons for running the workshop. We even stopped discussions about content outputs. We wanted to stop people thinking, I want this information on this page, and start thinking about what residents need and how they can help them achieve it. This helped them rethink how they think of content and gave us a better understanding of what information the resident needs. That colleague later said, I don't know what a content designer is, and I probably don't need to, but just from working with you, I'm starting to understand what a content designer does. Now, I didn't set that up. It was just very timely that she said that just when I was planning for this talk. I think it really sums up the benefit of not talking about content design. It just feels a lot more inclusive and less intimidating to people who are new to working with digital disciplines. They bring their service expertise, we bring the digital skills, but we just need to understand how we can work together to get the right information out there. 5, show them what good content looks like. You can tell people how to create good content or what we shouldn't do, but telling them why you don't do those things may not help. They may need to visualize what your solution will look like or see how people interact with it. For example, if they want FAQs or a page with lots of graphics or interactive elements, they may need to see someone interact with it to understand why a basic information page might work better. It's easy to get a false impression that everyone is happy with the work. You'll be working together in Word documents, all agreeing on the content, and then you're about to go live and they see the page mocked up and they go, oh, I wasn't expecting it to look like that. Showing them prototypes and mock-ups of what you're imagining will encourage those conversations earlier. Knowing what they want it to look like can help you work out how you can show them what you're proposing works better, or find a compromise that works for both of you. It's very hard to argue with user testing that shows that people can't interact with certain elements on the page, or see how confused or how long it takes them to find what they need. Again, you can do this without talking about content design, or in this case, user research. You can just show them videos of how people are interacting with it so they can see for themselves what the issues are without needing to understand the technicalities and jargon associated with the issues. This is particularly useful with accessibility. We all know that WCAG guidelines can be pretty daunting. So if they don't have to know the requirements, that we shouldn't try to make them. We can just say, this person missed all of this information because the information is on an image that they can't see. 6, talk to them in language that they understand. We're often talking to subject experts and explaining why we use simple language and why we remove internal words, team names, and jargon. Imagine saying we can't use the acronym SEND in our IA because people may not know what it stands for. So many of us are guilty of using our own internal language and jargon when talking to subject experts. It's pretty hypocritical and it can be pretty intimidating. Just like we would simplify legal language so people aren't put off from reading it, using our own design jargon when talking to subject experts may put them off from listening to what we're saying or understanding what we're saying. It puts up a barrier between you and the service team, and that can really isolate people and prevent collaboration and shared understanding, which I'd say is the key in building relationships. So one final thought I'd like to leave you with that is I think is the best tip for stopping yourself from talking about content design is to do content design. You can apply a content design approach to stakeholder management. Step 1 of content design, do research. Find out what subject experts want, need, and why. Step 2, gather needs. Find out what they do and what messages or services they need people to know about to be able to access. Step 3, journey mapping. Find out how their service works, the processes they follow, and the different channels they use to talk to residents. Use that to set realistic expectations for residents interacting with the service. Step 4, use language that they use. Avoid content design jargon so they understand what you want and need from them. Step 5, pair writing. Work together on the content and bring them along in the decision-making process so they understand what you're doing and why. And step 6, share and iterate. Get feedback from them about how they found working with you. Get them to talk about how you helped them. It means a lot more from one subject expert telling another subject expert than from a content designer talking about how good their own work was. And use that feedback to shape how you work with the next subject expert on your next project. That's it from me. I'd love to hear what other people think. Do you completely disagree with this approach? Have you tried something similar? Did it work for you or does it not work for you? I'd love to hear a bit more.
That was awesome. Some nice comments in the comments panel as well. Anybody have any questions, statements, or anything they'd like to share?
I can just say it was. I mean, it's not an enlightening comment or anything, but it was so useful, such practical advice, and definitely I'm going to have to watch that again. And as Denise put in the chat there, a few of us are going through interviews at the moment, and that is just such a great, like a roadmap on how to kind of, use a content design approach to working with stakeholders. I think that's just perfect, just something I haven't really thought about. I've just finished my contract at Brighton and Hove City Council, and that would have been, I'm just going to sort of think about my experience there and think about how maybe I could have done things a bit better and worked with stakeholders in a different way, sort of applying what you shared today. So thank you very much. That's great.
Thank you. It's definitely a simplified version. I mean, it's never as simple as we hope it will be. But I feel like I've tried it many different ways, and learning from what I've done in the past and seeing how we can do it a bit better, constantly iterating that approach. Just it seems to be working a little bit better.
Hannah?
I was just going to say thanks so much. That was really enlightening. It's funny because we've got a show and tell coming up where me and a fellow content designer are in an area that's not very UCD heavy. So we're trying to figure out how to do that without doing exactly what you said. So this has been really helpful in our approach to it, because we've kind of had to pick it up and put it down and pick it up and put it down. So I'll definitely be bearing that in mind for when we deliver that later in the month. Well, next month, because it's end of April. But thanks so much.
Some great comments. Anybody else? Nia.
Hello, I'll jump in. Alicia, that was lovely. It really resonated with me. I'm often trying to find different ways of helping people understand and bring them along. We always talk about that, bringing people along on the journey, getting buy-in. I was just wondering if you had any advice on, I suppose it's that, like, which hill are you willing to die on? Like, how do you tend to know when to persevere with something, or when to sort of switch tactics, or when to just kind of not give up, but sort of say, okay, we're going to have to park this for now? Like, do you have any tips for that kind of thing?
Yeah, I think knowing the people first before going into these conversations helps. I think I think the best advice I ever got was from my first manager, who I was having a lot of back and forth with a team, and it felt very aggressive. The email chain felt very aggressive, and I remember showing him and going like, what do I do with this? They're not listening to me. And he goes, have you spoken to them? Have you gone over there and walked over there and spoken? And I was like, no. And we went over and I met them, and they were just the loveliest people, and it was absolutely fine, and we worked out in about 5 minutes. So I think that's one of the best bits of advice that anyone has ever given me. But I think, yeah, having a basis of a relationship anyway when you start those conversations helps. And then I think when you go into those conversations, knowing in your head what your sticking point is. So for us, it tends to be, accessibility. Is this something that's completely not usable? And if it is, then there tends to be a bit of a stopping point. We've had meetings in the past where we've gone in and we've reached a stalemate, and I've sort of said, they've explained their side, I've explained my side, and we know that we're not going to agree. And we've sort of said, should we take a break here? Because I don't think we're going to. Should we bring this back to a group and we'll talk through, we'll mock something up, we'll bring it back, and then we'll talk it through. So that was specifically about, I think it was FAQs, typically, still FAQs 10 years later. But yeah, it was just having a bit of a break and knowing where you need to stop, because it's not helping either of you, and you're just going to get more and more frustrated, and that could damage relationships as well if you start getting defensive. So knowing when to stop for yourself as well, and just holding that a bit like, okay, I'm rising to this maybe a bit too much, and then actually stepping back and being like, okay, what is it that they, what is it that matters to them? Why are they upset as well? So, oh, they've got a deadline that's really important that they're really worried about missing. Okay, so if we talk to their manager and say, is it okay for us to push this deadline back a week? Their manager says yes, suddenly their stress is completely gone. So I think it's understanding why you're getting heated about it and why they're getting heated about it as well, and then working out how you can compromise and see how you can move forward together. I think just having a good old human approach, making sure that we remember that we're both humans trying to do our best jobs, really.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Anyone else with any questions? Jem.
Hello, sorry, my internet's a bit slow. Hi, Alicia. I thought that was a really good presentation. Thank you very much. I was just wondering, because it's quite an interesting thing, like sort of saying, like not talking about content design. Do you think that the sort of term content designer just isn't descriptive enough in itself? Like, do you sort of see like some shift away from actually calling it content design, or so I haven't really sort of thought this through, but I was just interested in like how we're not talking about what we are, because actually it's not that accessible and it's not descriptive. So like, where do we go from there if we're sort of not talking about it?
Yeah, I think it's a tricky one. I love being a content designer, and I love the name of it. I think that's why I think it's the design element that I like having in there, because I think it opens up less to the actual service teams. So I think service teams, you work subject experts, you're working with, they don't really know what it is, even if it was content writing or UX writing, they never really understand what that is, and I don't really think they need to know. And I think it's the same with other people's roles. We have so many team names in especially at a council that you're like, I have no idea what that is. I went to a meeting the other day, and I completely misunderstood what the service was, and I was like, what is your service? I was like, oh, I've mixed it up with this other one because I didn't know what your acronym was, which was a good example of why we don't use acronyms. But I think I don't mind it I wouldn't change the name, but I wouldn't use it that much with a service team. Like, I wouldn't say, oh, I'm doing content design, I'm a content designer, blah blah blah. I would just say, oh, I help make content information easy to find, use, understand, that sort of thing. But I do find I like having the content designer title, because I think the designer element in it makes it easier for like product designers and other people like that to remind themselves to invite you to the design stuff as well. So that's why I like the term. But yeah.
Yeah, it's like striking a balance. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. Thank you. Cheers. Nice one.
Erin?
Thank you. Oh, didn't realise I was off mute then already. I was about to unmute myself again. Wake up, Erin. Do you work with service designers in your organisation? Because you kind of talked about service designers as in the people that are running the services of the council. But I was just wondering if you work with service designers and kind of how they fit in.
Yeah, so we have service teams. So those are the people who run the council services. And then we do have service designers within our product team as well. So we, depending on what type of project it is, we would have service designers involved. And I think having service designers, I think that's kind of where I get this approach from. I've learned a lot from service designers because, you know, going in and, you know, we had a meeting in the past with someone from, I think, the British Heart Foundation, who they were saying about how they've started renaming services and how they focused on, you know, these workshops where they went in and said, okay, what do you help people achieve? And then they basically worked through it that way to help people understand. And I've really taken that approach in how I do relationships as well, because I feel like that was a really nice way of breaking down, okay, it's not the teams that matters and it's not the outputs. It's, okay, how do we communicate what is available to people? So yeah, service designers, I think working with service designers is such a privilege because you can learn so much from them. And I'm aware that it's not everyone has service designers to work with, but yeah, it's getting that extra richness and context about how the service works behind the scenes makes it much easier for us to do good content design as well. Because there's things that they tend to be the bridge between you and the service as well, because they understand their processes better, but they also understand user-centered design, so they can help sort of bring you together, which works quite well.
Yeah, brilliant. That's similar to my experience as well. Thank you.
Nick?
Hey, we do training at the University of Edinburgh for staff who work on websites, and we debated whether to put content design in the name of the training. We've gone with it for now, but I'm not totally convinced we've made the right choice. When we did, some people told us like, "Oh, you should call it like getting grip of your website" or something like that. Have you encountered that problem or anything similar to it? And if so, how did it go?
I can't really think of anything really specific that's similar to that. I think we have, when we've sort of said, oh, you know, these people will be working on your project with you or something like that, and content designers there, people don't really know what that means. So we've had it that way of it just creating a bit of a barrier of people being like, I don't really know what that means. But we don't really use content designer more widely outside of sort of job ads. So yeah, I don't really know if I can answer that one in a particularly useful way.
It's a tough question, and we're still not like decided on whether we've made the right choice so far or not. I've seen other content design London have a course, I can't remember what it's called, but it's like introduction to or foundations in content design.
Well, yeah, that's interesting. You just sparked something, because yeah, we're also trying to do something where we're trying to help people across the organization understand how to create better quality content or user-focused content. We're not using content design for that. We are thinking of sort of like, you know, how to write for your residents sort of training and that we wanted that for service teams. So it'll be a combination of us working with our comms department to sort of say, this is how we communicate on the web. This is how you can write clearly for, you know, in your letters to residents, phone calls as well. So like, we are trying to come up with some training internally to sort of spread the knowledge of good quality content without sort of saying content design, because they aren't content designers, but you know that everyone can, you know, help create better content if they understand, you know, what it is that, you know, the principles of it. So yeah, we are trying to promote that. But yeah, interested to see any training as well.
So that's an example of what I'm talking about, I think. Emma, the audience are like web editors across the university, so they're kind of not people who have content design in their job title for sure. but they're wide ranging. Some of them have heard about it and have like I've read the books, and other people like totally just like spend 5% of their week on it, really. But cool, thanks.
That was awesome, Alicia. If there's nobody else got any other questions, it's if you're not a member of our what Nia, what you saying?
Oh, nothing too important. I was just sending a message to Nick. I'm actually doing some market research into content design training. It's really interesting to see how people are sort of pitching it, the different ways that people are describing it. Even the course content is quite surprising sometimes. Yes, maybe there's a blog post in this. Who knows? But yeah, I would be very happy to, once we've done a bit of analysis, happy to sort of share some insights if that would be helpful. But yes, I would agree with not calling things content design.
Great. It's funny because I'm with you, Alicia. I like call myself a content designer, but I don't know how often I use it during the day. Yeah. Anyway, thank you. That was head is bursting. And I think my screen just froze there. Did my screen just froze there? But I said some amazing stuff. Right, thank you. Come and join the Content Club if you're not a member. There's a link in the chat there. Click on it now before I close the meeting, because you won't have a chance after I close the meeting. And that's been brilliant. Thank you.
Thanks so much.